CTV News with Caroline Van Vlartigan.
Good evening. A survivor of the Air Canada flight that crash-landed into an emergency vehicle at New York's LaGuardia Airport Sunday night believes the two pilots who died saved passengers' lives. Rachel Mariotti was returning to Brooklyn after visiting her daughter in Montreal. She was seated near the emergency exit of the plane and got out safely along with everyone else. Mariotti suffered minor injuries but believes the pilot's decision to brake hard rather than swerve to avoid the truck prevented more deaths.
I learned about these two guys, Antoine Forrest, Mackenzie Gunther. I think it's important to say their names, and I really want to say thank you to their families for raising such brave young men. I know that they were both from Canada, from what I recall, and they're both young and passionate about flying. And yeah, it makes you think about, how people go into professions that take a lot of risk to keep other people safe.
And we will have much more on Mariotti's thoughts on the crash tomorrow on CTV News and ctvnewsmontreal.ca. Meantime, the president and CEO of Air Canada has been summoned to appear before a committee of the official languages. One of the two pilots killed in Sunday's Air Canada crash was 30-year-old Antoine Forêt, a francophone from Coteau-du-Lac. Air Canada's CEO Michael Russo posted a video about the tragedy on social media and spoke only in English.
Hello, bonjour. I'm Michael Russo, President and CEO of Air Canada. Today is a very somber day at Air Canada. I'm here to provide information on an accident that occurred involving an Air Canada Express aircraft.
Federal Transport Minister Steve McKinnon was asked if he thought the English-only statement was acceptable.
Non, Air Canada, ils savent mieux. Ils ont une responsabilité de communiquer avec l'ensemble de la population, leurs intervenants, dans les deux langues officielles.
And the Federal Transport Minister says the head of Air Canada has a responsibility to communicate in both official languages, and the House of Commons adopted a unanimous motion condemning the unilingual message. Rousseau has been criticized for not speaking French in the past. Political analyst Antoinine Iaccarini says he should have at least made an effort to communicate in French.
Of course, we would like to talk about the pilots and be able to pay our respects without talking about language issues. But unfortunately, we have to talk about it because Mr. Russo has a baggage in the matter. And, you know, the Québécois and the Francophones around the country, they don't ask for perfection. They ask for respect and effort. And Mr. Russo never been able to show those two things.
And Air Canada issued a statement. It says despite his best efforts, Michael Russo could not convey his message in French, so subtitles were added. Hearings at the Supreme Court into Bill 21 continued today. This time, groups in support of the bill had the floor. Kelly Gregg on that.
Lawyers for the provincial government didn't waste any time, addressing one of the most controversial legal questions within minutes. Section 33 is clear, says Isabelle Brunet. It's a clear mechanism, and there's nothing that allows for a change in interpretation of it. Quebec's Attorney General's office says the province has the power to preemptively use the notwithstanding clause, even if it is controversial. The fact that Section 33 might be criticized, well, that was already the case in 1981. What the appellants are seeking is a way of sidestepping 33 as if it didn't exist. But there is a legal conundrum here. This case is in part a constitutional challenge. So can the Supreme Court rule on Bill 21 if the bill is shielded from the very law it's being challenged on? What about the independence of the courts and the declaratory powers of judges? And a conclusion when it comes to the validity of 33. Is there any way of reconciling these different ideas?
ces droits-là.
Quebec's lawyers arguing the fate of Bill 21 should be up to voters. The Chief Justice saying, let's just imagine there's a tyrant with no respect for gender equality and who might want to enact laws that violate the basic rights of Canadians in general. What would you say to that? Brunet responding, I would say that the guardians of the constitutions are not just the courts, but also the elected officials and the electorate. Lawyers representing groups in favor of Bill 21 presented today, saying it's the result of a decades-long debate in Quebec into reasonable accommodation and is based on the 2008 Bouchard-Taylor report. Lawyers for Pour les droits des femmes Québec arguing wearing certain items like a niqab isn't a sign of gender equality. Religious symbols that demand submission or modesty from women don't promote equality, she says. It's religion that discriminates against women, not Bill 21. Wednesday's hearings kick off with lawyers for the Attorney General of Canada. Arguments wrap up on Thursday, but a decision in a case so complex is expected to take months. Kelly Gregg, CTV News.
The Montreal Police Force says it will rid itself of racism by the year 2030. It set that deadline following growing pressures to address racial profiling. Stéphane Giroux explains.
Montreal Police Director Fadi Daguerre says his commitment to stamp out racism is sincere.
So the vision is, I'm hoping that in 2030, the police department of the SPVM going to be as close as possible to all the communities without any discrimination, any racial issues.
A report released in 2019 confirmed that certain minorities were still disproportionately targeted for random checks. The Quebec Superior Court also ordered the SPVM and the city to pay $171 million to victims. The police force has a 4-point strategy. It says will focus much more on building bridges, identify discriminatory practices, improve police interactions, get closer to the communities, and maintain a workplace free of discrimination.
We need police officers with technical skills, but we need also police officers with emotional skills, especially when you deal with complexity with the community.
The SPVM says it consulted with over 1,000 of its own employees and officers, and also members from cultural communities. And it discovered that sometimes racism comes from the most unexpected places, such as people calling 911.
The person the caller could be racist. And if the person at the 911 doesn't do the job, it might transmit a racist behavior to the policeman. And in that case, the police himself, the policeman or woman, become is serving a racist.
Many newcomers to Canada say they often arrive here with a deep mistrust of police.
Vous savez, quand on arrive ici, la police, là, pour nous, c'est la répression. Hein?
For many of us, we don't trust the police back home because of corruption, and it takes a long time to rebuild trust. The SPVM says it's now committed to making sure everyone can trust them to do better. Stéphane Giroux, CTV News.
Quebec has tabled a bill that will make it easier to force treatment and hospitalization on a person who is in a mental health crisis. It says it's modernizing a law that was passed more than 25 years ago. Olivia O'Malley explains.
The government announced it's overhauling a decades-old law to allow authorities to intervene before tragedy occurs. Health Minister Sonia Bélanger tabled Bill 23 today. It's an update to Law P38, known as the Act Respecting the Protection of Persons whose mental state poses a danger to themselves or to others. The bill changes the criteria for compulsory hospitalization of a person in crisis. Before, someone had to be in serious and immediate danger. Now there just needs to be a situation where there is danger to the individual or others. The government is investing $104 million over 5 years for crisis support services. In the changes, social workers will give the green light to police to bring someone in crisis to the hospital. They will be kept there for up to 7 days. Then, if the facility believes their care should be extended, it will need approval from Quebec's Administrative Tribunal. There has been a push to change the law since 2023 when SQ officer Maureen Brault was killed by a man in crisis who was reportedly disruptive and started conflicts with neighbors. Premier François Legault says he met with Brault's family after her death.
J'avais promis d'agir. C'est vrai que ça a pris un peu de temps, mais c'est très délicat. Évidemment, là, on veut pas aller trop loin contre le droit des personnes d'avoir la liberté de se faire soigner ou non, mais il faut comprendre que quand une personne présente un danger, entre autres pour les autres personnes, puis on voit ce que ça peut amener dans le cas de la policière Maureen Brault, je pense qu'on a une responsabilité d'être capable de forcer cette personne-là à se faire soigner.
Legault went on to say it took time, but it's delicate, not wanting to go against people's right to choose whether or not to receive treatment. The health minister also agrees that it's a delicate issue, but she hopes the bill will be passed before summer break in June. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News, Quebec City.
More than 100 community groups in Quebec say they're planning work stoppages to call attention to what they say is a chronic lack of funding. They say community group workers are often poorly paid for the work they do, and they say with the demand only rising, without proper funding, their futures are at stake.
The public generally does understand the importance of the community sector, and even the government does to a certain degree. The issue is that it's been taken for granted.
Quebec says it has increased funding for community groups by 50% and plans to increase it further next year. The Conservative Party of Quebec now has a seat in the National Assembly. Former CAQ Minister Maïté Blanchette-Vézina has confirmed she will sit as a member of that party. She appeared with Conservative Party leader Éric Duhaime this morning. Blanchette-Vézina left the CAQ last September to sit as an independent. She currently represents the riding of Rimouski, but she says she'll be running in the riding of La Pelletrie in Quebec City in the next election.
What we think of the Conservative Party is not what it is really. I think it's a progressive party, a conservative, progressive party, because we want to create wealth, we want to make a better Quebec, and this is coherent with women as well.
The STM and its maintenance workers have reached a tentative agreement. The agreement in principle was reached following recommendations from a mediator conciliator. Negotiations began 2 years ago, and during that time there have been 4 strikes. The dispute centered mainly around the issue of subcontracting. The contract has yet to be ratified. A new report points out the city's tourism industry will lose millions of dollars because a city bylaw limits short-term rentals to the summer months. The report was commissioned by Airbnb and conducted by an independent firm. It estimates the city will lose $19 million this year, partly because the Grand Prix takes place earlier in May. They say that means people coming to town for the event will not be able to rent short-term units. Airbnb says the city's reputation as a welcoming city could take a big hit.
It's about the events that may decide to host there in the future. And if what they're seeing is that people are really struggling to find somewhere to stay, those people may decide to host somewhere else.
The mayor's office is refusing to reconsider the summer-only rule, saying it intends to keep its promises to Montrealers about limiting short-term rentals. The Montreal area will soon have 2 airports to choose from. A new terminal has been built in Saint-Hubert with domestic flights set ready for takeoff this summer. All the details are on our website at ctvnewsmontreal.ca. Well, the Canadians were back on the ice tonight, taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. And after 2 goals for Carolina, the Canadians kicked in with a goal by Oliver Kapanen in the first, and then this in the second.
Beau jeu d'Anderson. Et là, un tir.
And that right there was Cole Caulfield's 44th goal of the season, right on the heels of Nathan MacKinnon, who's at 46. Caulfield also had an assist, and Slavkovsky, Demidov, and Evans also scored. So the final score was 5-2 for the Habs, but the real story of the night was Jakub Dobeš, who made 41 saves on 43 shots. A British DJ and music producer who's coming to Montreal says his career has exploded because of heated rivalry. 32-year-old Harrison produced a remix of the song All the Things She Said, which was used in an episode of the hit show on Crave. Since it aired in December, streams of his song on Spotify have rocketed to 38 million. He says the publicity he's received from it has led to new projects he never dreamt were possible.
Truly, it has been the most crazy surprise of 2026. I mean, some friends that watch his rivalry at the time had reached out to me saying, hey, this is pretty cool, like da-da-da-da. But I never thought that I would be getting messages from Germany and France and, you know, all of this radio play all over the world. And it kind of rejuvenated my career and allowed me to do amazing collaborations like I'm doing now that I never even dreamed I could do, you know? So I think I owe Heated Rivalry quite a lot.
And Harrison is now touring across Canada for his Heated tour. He'll be playing Le Belmont in Montreal on April the 2nd. And there's more from our interview with Harrison on our website, ctvnewsmontreal.ca. And still to come, a police raid on a home where a teenage girl is suspected of sex trafficking. Montreal police recently arrested a group of young people for sexual exploitation and human trafficking. And among those arrested was a teenage girl who was allegedly forcing other teenage girls to offer sexual services against their will. Etienne Fortin-Gauthier investigated this story for Entre les Lignes. Here's a little excerpt.
Comme journaliste, on a parfois un malaise à être en immersion avec la police. Mais pour nous aujourd'hui, c'est une occasion unique de montrer une réalité cachée et auquel on n'a pas accès sinon.
And Etienne Fortin-Gauthier joins us now. Etienne, you saw firsthand how police are working against these crimes. What did you see in this operation?
I saw many officers mobilized to try to put an end to these crimes. That morning that where we were with the police, there was 40 officers that would do raids all over the city to try to stop this specific group that was led by this 17 years old. She was at the top of this ring. She was the pimp leading this network of sexual exploitation. So what we saw shocked us, that it still exists in Montreal, and actually the police say there's more every week in the city.
How was she recruiting these girls to work for her, Etienne? What was she doing?
They were runaways, so runaway victims, and they are approached by social media. So that's why there's more and more of these crimes, because the criminals, they use Snapchat, Instagram. It's so easy to contact potential victims. They offer often a roof to these victims, accommodation, and then that's where it turns rapidly to exploitation. Sometimes they are assaulted in groups. Sometimes there are guns involved, and these little girls, teenagers, cannot go out of these activities because they're struck at one point.
And Etienne, you accompanied police on a raid at the house of this 17-year-old girl accused of pimping. What did you see there, and what struck you most?
What was shocking is that it was a normal 17 years old. She had movie posters in her room, you'll see it. She had toys, she had different things of a simple teen. But at the end of the day, she's allegedly a criminal that did a lot of harm to two other girls that were 15 and 16 at the time of the events. So this is what is shocking, to see that a teenager, a normal teenager did that type of criminal activities, and that's what the police is seeing more and more. The profile of criminals is changing. A lot of young girls now are doing that type of crimes.
And you spoke to or found out about the victim. How was she affected by this? She was 13, right?
Yes, exactly. She was the victim of another ring, another group, but the consequences are the same. Physical, mental consequences that she will have to live with for her entire life. It's dramatic. At 13 years old, she was abused by different men with guns too. And this is happening in Montreal. These days, it's still happening. And we see these victims that are getting through very difficult times, even after these events, these crimes.
Wow, and it shows, like Ghislaine Maxwell, there are women and girls recruiting other girls for sexual work in these cases, right? It's not always about men and young men, which we really have to change our mindset about, I guess, as we look for victims of these crimes.
Absolutely, that's the strategy to make these victims recruiters, so they are afraid to go to police and get help because they're afraid to be accused of crimes too. So this is a very complicated situation for these victims.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a very important report, and thank you for sharing it with us. Entre les lignes can be seen now on Crave. Thanks so much, Etienne. We appreciate it. And still to come, a Montreal music and film critic is remembered for his wit.
Menswear provided by Ernest. Elevate your style with Ernest. For breaking news and local news that matters to you, download the CTV News app right now by scanning the QR code on your screen using your smartphone. Or you can also go to our website, ctvnewsmontreal.ca. Weather brought to you by Gratian Scaff. Second pair is a gift event including designer frames. A second pair free for a limited time.
Well, we have more snow headed our way, plus freezing rain changing over to rain, but at least our temperatures are expected to be appropriately seasonal, at least temporarily. We'll get to those details in a moment. It should be appreciated that we'll see warmer temperatures, especially after a day like today where we're struggling to reach our normal daytime high, which is 4 degrees, today's high being 1. Now, let's break down what we're dealing with over the next 24 hours or so by putting our futurecast into motion. So we're still holding on to a 30% chance of some flurries. It looks like by 3 or 4 a.m., the majority of that system has pushed eastwards. Montreal sitting under partly cloudy skies. As we start our Wednesday, we're looking at mostly cloudy skies, but into the afternoon, we see additional clouds move in and we'll see cloudy skies. And we're tracking this system, which is expected to hit Montreal as early as 4 p.m. And we could see anywhere between 1 to 4 centimeters of snow. And it'll pretty much be changing over into the early morning hours on Thursday, first to freezing rain, and then we'll see the tail end of it as rain starting early on our Thursday. Now, right now it looks like it shouldn't impact the morning commute, but I'm going to be keeping my eye on this, the timeline of it, and we'll have all of those details for you as we head closer to Thursday. So in addition to that, we are actually seeing a somewhat seasonal temperature overnight, -5, feeling like -9. Once again, we do have that 30% chance of flurries for the next few hours. We start tomorrow off at -4 with mostly cloudy skies, hitting a daytime high tomorrow just above 0 at 1 degree, and we could see anywhere between 1 to 4 centimeters of snow, and it looked like the timeline starts around 4 p.m. Here's a look at our longer range forecast, and that sort of allows me to show you the temperature I was referencing off the top on Thursday. Yes, we could see around 8 millimeters of freezing rain changing to rain, but we will be at 6 degrees, which is closer, actually on the warmer side, to where we would typically be this time of year. But come Friday, we dip below 0 at -4, but at least we get lots of sunshine that day. Calling for a mix of sun and cloud on Saturday and Sunday. We could see around 1 centimeter of snow later in the day, but we will be above 0 at 3, hitting a high of 6 on Monday with an additional chance of 1 millimeter of rain in the evening. Come Tuesday, once again, looking at a mix of sun and clouds and a seasonal 3 degrees.
Journalist and arts critic John Griffin has died. Griffin was a critic for the Montreal Gazette for 30 years. He wrote about music before switching to film. He also founded a film festival in the eastern townships where he lived. Former colleagues and friends called him fierce but fair.
Very, very elegant style. He went to school in England for a spell, then he went to Bishop's, but he was a very funny guy, great writer. He didn't shy away from expressing an opinion. I was looking at one thing he was comparing in an old review. Someone posted he was comparing Geddy Lee, the singer, to a guinea pig on amphetamines, which kind of gave you an idea of where he would go.
Sounds like John. John Griffin died in Knowlton on March 21st. He was 76 years old. And that wraps it up for us tonight. For the latest news, you can listen to the Andrew Carter Morning Show at 5 on CJ 8800. And of course, you can always head to ctvnewsmontreal.ca for extended coverage. Thanks for staying up late with us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.